Aloha and welcome. Today we have two special guests in our studio, Dr. Cyrina Bullard and Liz Rutledge. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to have a treat today because these two women, they dedicate their life to children. And if you all have, any of you have children out there, you're going to want to lean in a little closer because they've got a message to share. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to both of you to talk a little bit about who you are, what you're committed to, and what is that passion that drives you.
I think we both have a deep concern about the alarming increase in anxiety, depression, and sadly, even suicide among our young children. And I know that I personally have had a personal experience where a teen took his own life and was really deeply disturbed by that. So about 10 years ago, started teaching mindfulness to teens and then now young children. And Cyrina has her own motivation, but we partner in making the difference.
Yeah, and life can take on a challenge sometimes. And I was a pharmacist for many years, and it was hard to dispense anti-anxiety meds to 14, 15-year-olds. So Liz and I are very motivated and passionate about wanting to help young children, 3 to 6-year-olds, to have a strong foundation for life. And I've almost died 3 times in my life. And I know that this life is a gift. And I want children to live their best lives and to know how to deal with their emotions, because life sometimes is challenging. We want to empower them.
Whoa, I have no words right now. Sorry. Well, the work that you both are doing, priceless. So I'm going to ask you, what got you both into this field? Because it's a field that we so desperately need, and yet so difficult to handle.
Well, I personally grew up feeling very anxious. And I believe that it's sort of an epigenetic crisis that, we're not necessarily taught how to manage and navigate hard emotions. And I'll let Cyrina talk about her piece of it, but I know for me, I was taught tools and techniques from a very young age that I didn't realize until much later that not all children are taught. And my parents were kind of hippies and taught me tools and techniques that like helped me manage, navigate panic attacks and things. And when that teen took his own life, I was like, why doesn't he know? Like innately, I knew that even if things got really hard, that there was something on the other side. The sun always rises and there's always a fresh day to restart. And so felt passionate about teaching what they're now calling mindfulness meditation to teens and young children. So that's my personal journey, is like wanting people to have what I had, but it hasn't always been easy.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm very motivated because I know that children at a very young age, there's lots of neuroplasticity going on, and their brains are growing exponentially. And if they're not exposed to these things, as far as what does meditation do? It's amazing the science behind it. In pharmacy school, I never learned anything about the science behind meditation. Also, exercise, connecting with others, doing things that bring you happiness, being silly, because I think we really also want to encourage families to have 1 hour a week to have fun, because many times families are so stressed out and they forget to have fun. And I think with young children, it's good to nourish the inner child. And I'm very passionate, well, we're both very passionate about getting this out into the world. And we have classes for schools, homeschools, organizations, as well as families, to help their children navigate their emotions.
Because let's be honest, Mamie, like these are the children who are going to determine whether or not we're in a nursing home later in life. Like we want them to have compassion and empathy and generosity and other elements of mindfulness that are not necessarily what people think of when they think of mindfulness. There's so many aspects of it. So, yeah.
I can feel it and I see it in both of you. And what I'd like you to do is this: take a look at this. Take a look at the camera straight in front of you. And if you could reach out with your words to the people that are listening or watching in, what advice could you give them to help them understand that, there's better ways, there's alternatives, and there's support?
I feel like we need to let people know that there are tools. There's evidence-based tools that we share in our course to empower the youth and to allow them to find that inner strength. Because I think many times people doubt themselves and they're insecure, and we really want to have children have this power inside of them that knows there will never be anyone just like them. They are one of a kind, and they have a gift to share with our world. And we want them to feel empowered to do this.
And I think I would add to that, similar to being an entrepreneur, you might feel like you're running up against a brick wall sometimes. And sometimes that's when it's time to pivot. Sometimes when you feel depleted, it's time to go to gratitude. Sometimes when you feel upset, angry, it's time to go run around the block or punch your pillow or do something that shifts your energy. But I would also just say, when you feel really depleted and sad, that going to even the most simple things that are a gift for you. So I started teaching mindfulness about 8 years ago in elementary school, and I can't tell you how many adults come up to me and say, I just had a woman this week that came up to me and she said, I was a para in Mr. Ferguson's class, and when you did that exercise about sending love to others, because she'd lost her husband a year and a half ago. And she said, I started crying, and I see 500 children a week and however many staff members, and I never know the impact that that's having on people. And so I guess I would just say, go deep inside and figure out what feels right. And don't be afraid to share that, because that intuition, we lose touch with it as we get older. And you never know when your smile or your compliment might be the one thing that that person in the grocery line needed to hear. You just never know the impact, the lasting impact.
Dr. Cyrina, do you have anything else to add to that?
I would say that, yes, every interaction that you have with people, you never know where it's going to lead. And that, with young children, they can bring a light to our world and allow them to be their inner child, to be happy and silly and goofy, because I think that we forget to do that as adults. And I also feel like we need to allow children to say, what is it that brings me happiness? What is it that will brighten my day? And how can I help other people have a brighter day? To be conscious of their surroundings and the people in them, because it has a ripple effect.
Absolutely. That ripple effect, I'm going to just say this, the ripple effect that you've chosen to make. And I remember meeting you about a year ago now. The ripple effect that I see that has already occurred, priceless, priceless. And so I'm going to ask you this. How can our listeners get in touch with you?
Well, the best thing would be to go to our website. It's sustainablehappiness.together.com. And I would also like to just invite people, if you too feel passionate about uplifting young people's lives, we are currently doing a crowdfunding campaign to have our program animated and ultimately translated so it's more well received by young children's minds and accessible to all globally. So we're raising money to get our program out there big. And we have a GoFundMe program and or crowdfunding campaign and an I Fund Women crowdfunding campaign. So we'd just love to, if there's somebody who wants to make a difference in the social and emotional intelligence of children, we'd love for that to be shared, or if you feel so compelled to donate to our cause.
Director, to have this come to fruition. And, any support and help would be welcomed for sure. And because we want to create a better future.
I love it. I'm going to say this to you, listeners. Dream so big that you can fit other people's dreams in it. Now, what other way to fit other people's dreams in it than invest in the future of our children? Thank you so much, ladies, for joining me today, because your voice, your story, and the impact that you're making is being felt around the world. And I am so honored to be able to take a sideline that I hope to take more action. because the cause that you have raised your flag for is so worthwhile. Because I too have 4 grandchildren. So thank you so much for touching my heart and touching the hearts and minds of our listeners. And this is what I'd like to say. Would you guys be okay giving me a longer podcast?
We would
Love
Yes,
to.
of course, we'd
We'd
love
love to,
to.
Mamie.
All right. So, listeners, stay tuned because this is just the beginning. Stay tuned for part 2 because we've got more to share. And keep in mind, leverage up, everyone. Your voice, your story, your impact is just waiting to be felt and heard. Have an amazing day.